Hello,
I'm Jen.
I'm Kimberly, and this is That Vegan Morning Show.
Welcome for joining us again so early in the morning. And if you aren't joining us live, that's okay. You can always tune in on the replay, put any questions or comments in the comment section, and me and Kimberly will get back to you as soon as we can. Today, we have a really special guest, Anna Balser from Woodstock Farm Sanctuary. And before we talk about more about her work and the amazing farm sanctuary that Woodstock is, we are first going to kick off our morning like we always do by talking about our weekend. So, Kimberly, how was your weekend?
My weekend was really good, and the best part was that it started off on Friday with a day off from work spent with you.
That's right.
So
And we forgot to put a picture up about that, but we'll put it on
we
our
did.
Instagram later.
Yeah. That was really wonderful. We got to hang out at one of my favorite places in the world, Ethos Farm, to see another one of our vegan friends talk about her newest book, Dr. Angela Crawford. And it was just a wonderful day. It was way too hot, but
We
besides that,
melted.
it was great. And we ate really nice food at Grounded for Life Cafe, and we brainstormed more stuff for the show. And it was just a really good day. Highlight of my weekend for sure.
Same. My weekend was that part that you just said. I wish every Friday we could do that, right?
I know, me too.
Except the melting in the sun part.
Yeah,
And then Saturday, my husband and son had other plans, so I had the house to myself with the cat. So just did different things. And then yesterday, my husband and I did our usual chores and adulting stuff, grocery shopping. But then we binged through the rest of White Lotus. Everyone keeps talking about this show. We started watching it like, I don't know, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And yeah, couldn't stop watching it. We had to finish it. We watched the last four. I think we crammed in 4 or 5 episodes yesterday. We gotta finish this. And now I'm here.
yeah. Oh, we watched the movie Friendship with my favorite vegetarian comedian, Tim Robinson. Fingers
Oh,
crossed one
nice.
day he'll join us and go vegan. But the movie was really
Almost
fun. I
there.
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
What about you, Anna? How was your weekend?
My weekend was really nice. I went to visit my parents in Massachusetts, and we had a really nice visit. I got the garden tour, which is always exciting, and got to eat a tomato right off the vine. Got to eat some nice
Ooh.
raspberries. Yeah, it was a very peaceful, very chill weekend. It was really nice.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we all had great weekends. And now, before we ask Anna some questions, I'm going to read a little bio about Anna, who was recently on my YouTube channel, The Confident Vegan. We had a really great interview on there, and maybe we can include the link to that later. But yeah, so Anna Balser is the programs manager at Woodstock Farm Sanctuary over in High Falls, New York. She holds an MS in anthrozoology from Canisius College, where she primarily focused her studies on sanctuary regulation, public policy, and animal ethics. She loves helping people question their assumptions about veganism and think more deeply about their relationships with other species. In her free time, she enjoys experimental vegan baking and eating, road trips, and puzzles. Hello. Thanks again for joining us so early in the morning, Anna.
It's nice to start the day early. It's nice to start the day early.
I
Surprisingly,
agree.
me and Kimberly, this has become our favorite. Like, we normally don't like getting up very early on Monday mornings, but since we've been doing this show, which, by the way, you're our 20th episode, so thank you for
Yay.
helping us celebrate our 20th episode. Yeah, this is like my favorite part of the week, is getting up early and talking about the things I'm most passionate about with Kimberly, which is all the different things about veganism and how there's a lot of benefits to it. A lot of people think it's this horrible restricted lifestyle, and it's really about compassion, right? And why is compassion looked at as inconvenient, right?
Mm.
Which that's a whole other discussion. Maybe that could be a future topic, Kimberly.
Yeah.
But we wanted to talk about a specific topic with you, Anna. There's this homesteading and backyard chicken craze. And this is a topic me and Kimberly have wanted to cover for a while. And we thought, you know what, you'd be the perfect person to have this discussion with, because I'm sure you see a lot of the wrong that happens when people do this homesteading and backyard chicken craze. That's, I would say, over the past year, especially, I've been seeing a lot of talk about this. So can you share a little bit more about what is homesteading?
So homesteading, I guess, at the most basic level, kind of at this stage in our collective evolution as a society, is really people who are wanting to be self-sufficient. They're wanting to live off of their land. They want to produce their own food. And yeah, just kind of live if not entirely self-sufficient, but more self-sufficient life, basically. And so homesteading doesn't always have to necessarily include farming non-human animals, but often we see, or I've seen, that it does. So whether that's chickens for their eggs, or to eat the chickens themselves, or other animals too. Often it includes chickens or even rabbits. I see a lot, and even cows on a small scale, or goats, sheep.
Yeah, I feel like too, like a lot of people feel like there's this like value in being able to control everything yourself, which, you know, it's great if you can be able to do your own stuff and be self-sufficient. But like you said, it doesn't have to involve animals. It could just be gardening, right? You know, gardening could be homesteading, which I never thought about before, right? I always just think about it as like a home garden. But yeah, that's a good point, right? And but no one's talking about that. Everyone's talking about the value of doing that. And you were mentioning, you know, doing the backyard chickens, because I think that's even more of a popular topic, because not everyone can necessarily have goats and rabbits and the occasional cow on their land, but chickens take up much less space. And a lot of the time, and I've gotten this, Kimberly, I don't know if you've gotten this, but probably also is, well, what about the backyard chickens? They're just running around. They're just, you know, no one's hurting them. They're not in a factory, right? So what are the downsides of backyard chickens?
Well, there are a bunch. I guess we can start on the impact on the chickens themselves, and then just kind of like roll on from there. And so I know that we talked about this a little bit on your show, The Confident Vegan, but I think the important thing to understand with chickens, especially chickens who are used for their eggs, is that the way that they're bred sort of makes their setting irrelevant. And so whether you're getting eggs from your own backyard chickens, or, you know, the farm down the road, or eggs in the supermarket, all of those chickens have been bred to produce so many more eggs than they would ever produce naturally. And so just the process of producing all of those eggs causes a lot of suffering for them. So that's, I would say, the main downside of it. And what we also see a lot at the sanctuary is that people who kind of take on backyard birds, they often do it a bit impulsively, and don't realize how many health problems these chickens can have, how strong your predator protection needs to be, especially in like rural-ish areas. You know, there are a lot of predators who are interested in those chickens for sure. And then just sort of also the human relationship aspect of it, where maybe your neighbors aren't the biggest fans of your chickens, especially if you have a rooster. Maybe your town laws aren't the biggest fan of your chickens, and especially your rooster. And so there are a lot of complicating factors to it. And I think that's kind of also the thing with homesteading in general, is that it's sort of like sold to people as this like simple, like back to the basics lifestyle, like everything's very wholesome, but the reality is it's just a lot more complicated than that. Like you can't just go and buy a dozen chicks and then have a new life where you're self-sufficient and like everything's working out great for you.
I think it's been so romanticized, right? This idea of, like you said, going back to the basics. There's this whole thing right now of going back to like the whole trad wife movement and going back to women, just being home and making everything from scratch. And then this connection to homesteading, that we don't need the larger world. We can have our own little world and our own place and on this bucolic land. And it's just going to be so beautiful. And our children are going to be raised in such a more meaningful way. And it all just, it creates this like false idea of what's actually going to happen. And so people, like you said, they get into it without thinking about it. It's kind of impulsive. And now you have these animals that you need to take care of. And you mentioning with the predators, I know here I live in Northwest New Jersey, and we have foxes everywhere. And I actually interviewed someone a little while ago, and she used to have chickens. Her ex-husband was very interested in just having them as like pets, not to eat or anything like that. And he really cared about the chickens, but he was in the coop one day, walked out without doing a double check. He had let a fox in, locked the coop, woke up the next morning, all of the chickens had been murdered by the fox, killed by the fox. So, and it was awful. And not, even when you have what you see as your best of intentions, there are these situations that can come up, and you can end up in, where these chickens are not living their best life. I've seen chickens walking along the street in Yonkers, it's just like their backyard chickens. They're just hanging out, and now they're at risk of being hit by cars. It's
Oh, that's so there is a chicken right on the side of the road while I was driving home the other day. And I had to swerve out of the way, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? I couldn't see where they ended up, but it happens there's always a chicken by the road around here. It's just like, they're wandering around. It's stressful. And I feel like at a certain point, if you're kind of valuing the image of the homesteading lifestyle, it's like you're kind of just using other animals as kind of props for like this. Maybe calling it a fantasy is too harsh, but you're kind of using them to kind of achieve this status, or kind of represent a certain lifestyle. And I think that could be a little bit problematic as well.
I recently watched this Earthling Ed video where he shows the homesteading craze and just all the contradictory practices in it, like offering a gratitude prayer to the chicken before slaughtering it, or putting in, or there's this one video he showed of this homesteader where she shows these things that she uses to restrain the chickens before what they call processing them, right? Right? But sounds much nicer than killing, right? And she talks about how it gives them a little hug so they feel safe and secure, right? And she offers them, this silent gratitude prayer, and he talks about how they're talking against factory farming, but they're doing essentially the same thing. It's the end result of exploiting an animal, killing it. We don't need to be doing this. And then you're using these like gratitude practices and loving kindness to ease your own conscience. And then he talked about how factory farmers they're not doing this because they want to. It wasn't their career choice. It's not something they feel about. A lot of them end up, and we've talked about this before, Kimmy, like they end up in this industry because for survival, right? They're just trying to make a living somehow because they feel like they have no other options. And these people are trying to make, it's a different reason, but it's all the same result. And we don't need to be doing this.
Yeah, the gratitude and like the language of sacrifice I find just really disturbing. And I think people do talk about like animals like, oh, they sacrifice, so it would be disrespectful to not honor their sacrifice. And I think we can all just try and remember that like sacrifice is freely given from an individual. You can't take a sacrifice from somebody else. And yeah, I see that a lot on social media, especially. And it's very, very disturbing, this like kind of the contrast between somebody saying how much love there is and how well connected they are, but like they'll never actually like use plain language to say what they're doing, because it would just be so disturbing, I think, to most people to say like, yeah, like they're slitting their throat or however they're processing, dispatching their animals. It's very troubling, and it is like it's like kind of a brand of video that I've been seeing a lot lately, is people being like, oh, the last moments of this cow and I loved him so much, and everyone's saying goodbye to him as he goes on the truck. It's just like, oh, like if you were talking about a different species of animal, I think people would be like truly up in arms about it. But yeah, when it comes to farmed animals, people just see them as having less worth. Or as somehow like being a willing participant in that dynamic. It's so strange.
Yeah. This whole like, well, the animal gives their life so that I can eat. It's like, no. Their life is taken no matter what. They all have an interest in living just like we do. And this, to think that a cow willingly walks up and says, go ahead, I'm so honored to feed a few people, give up my entire life. The disconnect that we are capable of, right? That's another thing Jen and I always talk about. It's that cognitive dissonance that people can exist and have these thoughts that are not at all based in reality and just go about life. And that's like the main way that people think. Do you see, kind of going a little bit off track for a second, do you see a lot of that in like tours at Woodstock, where people who aren't vegan are coming and they don't really understand what these animals have been through, and kind of they come from that side?
Yeah, I mean, people come from all different experiences, when they come on tours. Some people are very like tuned in and very aligned with our mission already, and then some people really just don't really know what we have going on, and they learn about it for the first time on the tour. But definitely when it comes to like smaller scale farming and kind of like homesteading and backyard chickens and everything, I feel like especially in this area, so many people have experience with that, and so it definitely always warrants a discussion. I try and include it on every tour that I give at the sanctuary, to talk about how a lot of our rescued birds do come from backyard situations. And people are I think with the best of intentions, people are like, oh, like I have chickens, or my neighbor has chickens, or my brother or whoever, and I think that, often they'll be like, but they do it in a way that's, everyone's fine. And then we kind of like unpack it a little bit more. But then I also do, and usually little kids are, they kind of snitch on their family, and they'll be like, we used to have chickens, but then, a fox ate all of them. I've had that happen several times on a tour where a child lets me know that. And I'm like, oh, that's that's really sad. Like, that's that shouldn't have happened to those chickens. But of course, you know, when it's the child, you don't want to make them feel too bad about it. It's not their fault. But that definitely has happened more than once. Yeah.
And I remember when oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if you're watching now and you have any questions for Anna, please put them in the comments and we'll make sure that we answer them.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kimberly, for putting that reminder out there. Yeah, I was just going to say, I remember when I interviewed you on my channel, we talked about how you also do offer a tour for children too, that's more geared towards being sensitive to them, because that's important too.
Yes. I've come to really enjoy having kids on tours and doing this like specific kids programming, because I think that, they naturally have a lot of empathy for non-human animals, and I think it's important to like try and give them that input in their early life to like hopefully hold on to that and keep thinking about it. Yeah, it's really cool to show a child and kind of watch them understand that these animals who seem so different from them or so different from the animals that they already know, like dogs or cats at home, to kind of watch them make the connection that actually they are pretty similar. Yeah, I think it's a super important thing to do. And even if their parents aren't like 100% on board, I'm hoping that, we're making a positive impact for them, and they can just, see being kind to animals as something that's an important thing to do, just like being kind to other humans or other things that kids have to learn, like, I don't know, sharing, cooperation. I don't have kids, but I do enjoy, I really enjoy kind of being part of that process with them for sure. And that's, on Saturdays at 10 a.m. are our kids tours. Sorry for the plug, but that's what we do.
No. Well, I was going to ask you, we were going to ask you to plug eventually about that. Yeah, I think that's really great that you offer those two types of tours. And yeah, I think, kids don't learn things until their parents ingrain it into them. Like, I think kids are naturally compassionate, curious. They want to understand. They'll see the contradictions of their parents, right? And they'll say something, and then it's like, shh, don't say that, right? But there's an honesty there that gets deprogrammed, like as we talked about the cognitive dissonance, right? And then again, if we have to program and do these things to try to justify something that we know deep down is wrong, like, that's a problem.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it slips in, I think, in so many different places for kids, because it's like like farmed animals are such a large part of like books for kids, and there's so much seemingly like benign education around farmed animals for little kids, like the songs that they sing and everything like that. And if you really start digging into it, the phrasing, it actually is like kind of similar to like this homesteading mindset, where like so many books are like, oh, cows give us milk, or things like that, where it kind of seems like it's a free exchange, or an equal exchange between us. And yeah, like it starts so young. It's kind of wild.
What's so baffling to me, and maybe it's just because I've been doing this for so long, is that the number of adults who don't know that cows only make milk if they've been impregnated.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. It's really interesting, and but it is one of those things where it's like, you grow up just having milk, and if nobody around you is ever thinking about it, you don't ever think about it. It's just the way that things are. And yeah, that's why I think it's, on our tours, we really just try and like lay it out plainly. And I think some people are like, yeah, like everybody knows this. But yeah, as you know, definitely not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, like now that I'm thinking about it for 5 seconds, like, of course that's the case. Like, how else could it be? But yeah, for some reason, there's kind of a wall there where you're never interrogating that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Kimberly. It's true. And it's one of those things I didn't even think about until I went down my vegan journey and started uncovering the truth behind our food system. Right.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying. And then you feel bad because you participated in it. But I tell people all the time, and we've talked about this too, Kimberly, it's like, once you know better, then you can do better. Right. So, and it's not anyone's fault for not knowing the things they know, just because again, that's just how we're all kind of collectively raised, more or less. But once you have that information, then you have that opportunity to make those changes and not participate in that. Which there was another question we wanted to ask you about. You see these terms about free range and grass fed, and how like my husband's not vegan, so he'll get like the free range eggs and this stuff, and he'll be like, but they're free range, they're fine. And I'm like, you don't want to go we can have fun conversations at the kitchen table sometimes, but
I could imagine. Yeah, so all of these terms are like, the cage free, the grass fed, the free range, all of those terms were terms that I definitely, before I became vegan, I really like thought that those terms had value and were meaningful in terms of making sure that the animals on farms like had higher welfare. But once I started like actually looking into the requirements of those different certifications, I really found them lacking. And all of the requirements and kind of practices that are allowed or not allowed, you can find them online. You can look them up, whether it's something like cage free or something that's like or organic, USDA regulated, or just like the private kind of third party certifications, like certified humane and things like that. You can look up the different practices that they allow, and the marketing makes it seem like anyone who's using these labels are giving the animals a really idyllic life. They're on rolling hills and they have those illustrations, but it really is pure marketing. Kind of aside from what we already talked about with the breeding and the way that that chickens who are used for eggs have been bred to just produce, so the setting doesn't matter so much. But in a lot of cases, even with these labels, the setting is still one of pretty extreme confinement and just an unnatural life. Chickens come from a bird called a red jungle fowl, and so their natural habitat that they prefer is really more of a jungly habitat. So like being in just like an open field is pretty stressful for a chicken. It leaves them pretty vulnerable. They don't really want to be in that environment, and so I think that's something to think about that a lot of people don't realize. But then also a lot of these certifications, like they'll say like, oh, the birds have to have an option to go outside or to access, a certain amount of space. But it's not important to like to make sure that the chickens are actually like using that access or are able to, go out that little door onto like the tiny outside space. So often the birds are still confined in these huge warehouses with like, one little door where maybe some of them who happen to be near the door can take a step outside, but everybody else doesn't have the access. So yeah, it's one of those things that actually really makes me mad, because I think people have good intentions when it comes to these labels, but the reality is that they don't have a meaningful impact on the welfare of the birds. And when it comes to like labels like organic, I always feel like it's important to say, you know, organic is not a welfare certification. It has to do with the food that the animals are eating and things like that. And so, yeah, organic does not equate to anything that is making the lives of the animals better, unfortunately.
It's kind of infuriating too, because not only are their lives not better, and they're still meeting, again, the same end that any animal in the animal agriculture industry does, but these companies then charge people more so that they feel good about what they're buying.
Mhm.
That's so gross.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very sinister.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's upsetting for sure. And
That's a really good point, Kimberly.
mhm.
Yeah, it's like, you know, every chance they get, like large corporations just try to like dupe us and make us make a choice that benefits them and doesn't benefit us or whoever else is in the mix of whatever that thing is.
Mhm.
And I think too, it just goes to show that how we really need to do our research, right, when it comes to marketing terms, right? And I mean, again, like you were saying, the rolling hills on the packaging, right? It looks, you know, there's always this like peaceful, serene farm,
Right.
right?
Happy
The animals are
cows.
right.
Mhm.
Everybody's happy that they're being exploited, so therefore they're not being exploited. And as long as you give them a compassionate prayer before you exploit them, then it's okay, right?
Right.
Right? People need to do their research.
You know where you will find happy cows, though? At Woodstock Farm Sanctuary.
Yes, which I'm
Yes.
glad you said that, Kimberly, because can you share a little bit more about Woodstock Farm Sanctuary?
Yes, I would love to. So, Woodstock Farm Sanctuary is a nonprofit organization. We are a sanctuary for rescued farmed animals, and there are about 300 rescued farmed animals who live at the sanctuary. And yeah, you know, cows rescued from the meat industry and the dairy industry, chickens who have been rescued from the egg industry, obviously, and chickens who were going to be eaten as well. So many chickens, turkeys and ducks, goats and sheep, rabbits, pigs, and potbelly pigs. So yeah, a very fun team of rescued animals who live at the sanctuary. And we also do a lot of education as part of our mission. So we do public education tours on Saturdays, including our kids tour, but then also a lot of adult education as well. And so we're kind of in the thick of our visiting season right now. So it's been really cool to meet a lot of people and, you know, and have these conversations and kind of dig in a little bit more to the assumptions that people have about farmed animals, and just, you know, help them get to know them as the individuals that they are. Yeah, I really enjoy our visiting season for that reason. I feel like we're able to reach a lot of people and really give them an experience that they're not going to have very often, probably, to interact up close with these animals, because I mean, as you both know, like, their lives are really hidden from us most of the time, and so I think it can be really powerful to meet somebody who could have easily ended up on somebody's plate, but instead has been, you know, living their best life for many years after that was supposed to happen to them.
And I love on your website, you have stories about the different cows who are residents, right? Which is what they are. I love that terminology, right? The animal residents. And I love how you have the stories of the different animals on there. And You have an area. I talked about it before on a previous blog post. And yeah, you can like learn about each cow. They have an identity, right? They have their own stories. They all have their own experiences. This is a being that again wants to have their own lives, and they have their own personalities, right? Like we talked about this before on my channel, right? Like all the residents on the sanctuary have their personalities, right?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's really cool. Depending on the circumstances of the rescue and everything, sometimes it takes their personality a while to come out fully. As they feel more comfortable, they start feeling more able to just be themselves. I think, which maybe a lot of people can probably relate to. And so yeah, it's really awesome just to get to know them. And then others, their personality is like the second you meet them, you're like, okay, like, yes, got it. And they're kind of the same. They're the same always, which is also really cool. That some people are just like, I am who I am, and you can just take it or leave it, basically. Which I really love. But yeah, everybody has their own story, and their own journey of how they got to the sanctuary. And yeah, I think it's really just part of what we do to like remember that and honor that, and really see them as individuals, treat them as individuals, and to kind of care about their whole life, social and emotional, as well as like the health care that they need.
Also, just something quickly I was thinking about is the stark contrast between how long an animal gets to live when they're part of the food system and how much longer they get to live when they're at sanctuary. It's like 10, 15, 20 years for some of them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we have a lot of senior animals who are living at the sanctuary, which is so amazing. To know pigs who are like 13 and 14 years old who were supposed to be killed when they were 6 months old. It's just, it's so rare for them to be able to live out their lifespan. And also, in the past couple of years, we've been able to rescue some very young pigs, in particular is who I'm thinking about, Marge and Sylvia, two young pigs we rescued when they were each just like a handful of weeks old. And now they're almost 2. They'll be 2 in a couple of weeks, but when they hit that 6-month mark, it really got to me. I was like, oh my gosh, this would have been it for them, and they're still just complete babies, and we still see them as babies at almost 2, like they're still very young, but it really it made me very emotional to think about that like their lives, like they're still figuring it out, like figuring out how to be a pig, and and figuring out who they are and everything like that. And it's just really mind-blowing to think about that, especially when you know that individual and kind of have them right in front of you. And I think, well, to bring it back to homesteading, I think it makes it like even more disturbing that you could raise somebody from like a tiny baby, and then while they're still a baby, just be like, well, thanks for your sacrifice.
Right.
I can't understand it.
The Earthling Ed video that I referenced before, one of the tips that he talked about, that one of the homesteading moms would share is, don't get attached, to the animals, don't name them. And if they named them, they would have the kids name them something that represented the food, like crispy or nugget or something like that. And like, I'm like, oh my God, that's so disgusting. Like, how does anyone think that this is okay? Like it just sounds horrific to me. And then as vegans, we're looked at as the weird ones. Right.
Right.
That gets me. I'm like, yeah, how is that less weird than just being like, oh, I don't want to participate in all that. I don't want to kill a baby. Not interested. It's like, how does that make me weird? I don't know. It's so strange.
Yeah, very, very, very strange. Which is why we're all doing the work that we're doing to make people realize that maybe we're not the strange ones. Maybe they are.
Yeah.
But in a nice way, most of the time.
True. And yeah, I think while I was kind of getting ready for this, I was reading just online homesteading people who were having trouble with the realities of having to kill animals, like for their lifestyle, or their for food. And it's so interesting to see people kind of making these connections that we've made and being like, I know them, like they know me, they come up to me, like it seems like they have their own thing going on, and like I feel really guilty about taking their life away. And then just to see people convincing them to ignore that gut feeling and go through with it anyway. And yeah, I think I would hope, I guess, that most people do have that gut feeling that like something isn't quite right here, and then all of the things on top of it, like the gratitude prayers and everything like that, like that's just a way for them to resolve that negative feeling that they have inside. And yeah, I guess like I wish people would just like lean into that little voice a little bit more, and and just kind of and follow that instead of trying to like shove it down or like find a reason that they're just overreacting or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like we could talk more about all of that stuff too, like the feelings and right, like the programming you have to do. Maybe that's a future topic, Kimberly.
Just thinking about like the first, and like you're saying, Anna, having that feeling and thinking these people realizing like, oh, I actually have to kill this animal, and they're having those emotions. My thought is then like, if you go through with it, you have to live with that for the rest of your life. And like, how do you do that? I don't, that,
yeah.
How do you do that? Yeah.
I truly don't know. I do know that we hear a lot from adults who like as children participated in like 4-H programs and other other venues for animal exploitation that feel a lot of like guilt and trauma from like the betrayal of their friends, their non-human friends from when they were young and like didn't really understand the big picture like they do now. And so it's a shame, I think, that we're encouraged to suppress those feelings, and because I think it can cause a lot of damage as time goes on.
Yeah. And I think some of that stems from like generational trauma. In the past, it was like, you can't have your feelings, suck it up, buttercup, just move on, don't address it, right? Just you just keep on keeping on. And we live in a different time, and it's okay to change. Just because people didn't address feelings in the past doesn't mean we can't do that now. And I mean, it's more acceptable now, and there's more space and outlets to do that, but it's not the same, but I think people are still in that transitional phase of their own healing and personal work on that. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So Anna, we're gonna, I think it's time to wrap up. What do you think, Kimberly? Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I think so. As much as I'd love to chat with you both all day.
I was looking at the time and I was like, oh my, it's almost 8:00. But whenever we have guests, we usually go a little bit longer. Before we wrap up, Anna, first of all, thank you again for coming on here early and having this chat with us. But how can people connect with you? How can people connect with the farm? And we'll also include information in the notes as well.
I would love for people to come and visit. Of course, we do tours on Saturdays, and we'll have those kind of into the first part of November on Saturdays. So you can get tickets online at woodstocksanctuary.org. You can also follow us on social media. We're at Woodstock Sanctuary on, I think, every platform. And so you can learn more about the residents and see what we're doing. We have some advocacy things going on right now that I think are really important too. So yeah, definitely follow us online. And if you're in the area, we would love to see you on site. That would be really awesome.
Great. I have never been, but I can't wait to visit one day, hopefully sometime before the summer's over, which I can't believe it's almost over already.
I know, I can't even talk about it, but I would love to have you both come for a tour. That would be really, really fun.
Yeah, I think a future field trip for us, Kimberly.
Yes, absolutely.
Broadcast from the field.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. And if you're watching the replay and you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section, and Jen or I will get back to you. Thank you again so much, Anna. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, fun way to start the day. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. All right, well, we hope you all have a great week.
Sorry. Let's do great. Yes, everyone have a great week.
Okay, now bye.